Thank you and greetings to you all. It is a joy to be with you here today. This year has challenged the world in ways that no one could have anticipated. COVID-19 has changed the way that we work, socialize, and celebrate. And finally, we're starting to see hope on the horizon. Hope for access to vaccines, hope that once again we can be together in person, and yes, hope, the kind that heals our hearts. We have spent much of the last year coping with what the world has placed before us. President Holger speaks often of the care that we have shown each other and how important it is to recognize our bonds of friendship and service. And I am overjoyed that President-elect Shaker continues to turn the spotlight onto Rotary service at a time when the world needs us most. And yes, there are still challenging times ahead, but the world needs us now more than ever. And Rotarians need each other to stay connected and continue to take action against COVID-19. That is the leadership that is entrusted to each of us as leaders in our great organization. To be brave, to be intentional in our actions. I want to share a story with you about when I served as a club president. I must say, I loved being a club president so much that I really hated sitting down at the end of the year. That year was 2001, and I was one of President Rick King's Regal Eagles. It was also the year that will forever be remembered for the date 9/11. Who will ever forget what happened on that fateful Tuesday? My home club meets on Tuesdays, and around 10 a.m. I started receiving calls and emails asking if our meeting was canceled. Somehow, I knew at that moment that we needed to be together, to be in shared experience. As you likely know, I'm Canadian, and on that day, as the meeting began, we stood facing the American flag and sang the Star-Spangled Banner, their anthem, and wept alongside our friends on the other side of the border. Our speaker on that day was a young Rotary scholar who was heading to study in Poland. We quickly changed the format, and he and I simply sat in front of the club and had a discussion. And he had incredible observations about peace. The love and support for each other and for our American friends was profound. And it's times like these that you truly feel the impact of the family of Rotary. Over the past several months, these are the same kinds of moments that have played out across the globe over and over again. Our ability to look out for each other, to weep together, to pray together, and to protect each other, both physically and mentally. I'm sure that many of you have heard this quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." That is the family of Rotary. I guess what I'm saying is be that person. Be the kind of leader who is brave enough to say and do nice things for your members and their families. They will never forget how you made them feel. And the even greater reward, you will never forget how it made you feel. I want to spend the rest of my time with you talking about something near and dear to my heart, the creation of Rotary moments and Rotary's public image. It used to be that we were encouraged to do our good work quietly and not for recognition. It's really only been the past decade where telling our story has become one of our strategic initiatives. What we've learned is that when we tell our story, like-minded people want to join with us. It's actually one of our greatest membership tools. Who in this virtual room doesn't have an amazing Rotary story? Each and every one of you has experienced the joy of a Rotary moment. It's taking it that next step and understanding that when you share them, you can help to change people's lives. When the simple and the ordinary collide with intention, it can become extraordinary. Rotary provides each of us with a platform, and a powerful one, to help shape how people see our organization. So, what are the stories that you have to tell, and how can you share them? The best way I can express it is that you want to paint a story with your words, It's about putting forward the human face and making that emotional connection. Our lives are rich with content, and your own personal stories are a powerful way to connect with Rotarians. It's about stepping back and looking at situations in your life and appreciating the lessons they provide for you and for others. Then, it's about sharing them. Imagine if we could engage our 1.2 million members as the greatest storytellers of our organization's accomplishments. Everything that we do affects our image and our brand. Quite simply, our ability to tell our stories in a compelling way affects how our organization is perceived. A decade ago, I completed one of the biggest challenges of my life. My husband Nick and I climbed nearly 20,000 feet to reach the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. It was part personal challenge and part a Rotary fundraiser. It took 5 days to reach the summit. The first in lush forest, the second in thick brush, the third in low scrub, and the fourth day was like landing on the moon, craters and no sign of life. Now, let me explain to you, climbing Kilimanjaro is not a technical climb like Everest. The battle with Kili is altitude, and for me, it was a journey to the depths of positive thinking. By the time that we had arrived at base camp above 15,000 feet, 2 of our team members were exhibiting mild to medium signs of altitude sickness. It begged the question, should we really be doing this? The summit is attempted at midnight, and it takes somewhere between 6 to 7 hours. It's done at this time because the temperature drops to -20 and it freezes the ground so that you can get better traction. Each of the groups that attempts the climb is led by a team of guides, and this is a coveted job because of the precious tips that they receive. Now, this is where the story becomes very personal. As we set out that night with only a miner's light leading the way, I was torn whether to feel exhilarated by the opportunity or terrified by the fact that something could go wrong. It wouldn't be until we reached ground level that we would learn a guide from another team had died, and a 22-year-old man from England was in cardiac arrest. Our guides sang Christmas songs in Swahili, and the rhythm of their music helped to create a pace to our steps. Pole pole in Swahili means go slow, and it was the mantra of our climb. You see, the best way to ward off altitude sickness is to stay very well hydrated and to take time to adjust to each level by going slowly. Pole, pole. I must confess that I entered into this climb perhaps a little too lightly and without the full appreciation of the dangers. I suppose I knew them, but I was excited by the adventure and most eager to reach the top of the African continent. It seemed like we had been climbing forever when our guide shared that we were only a quarter of a way to the top. It was also at this point that our water, even insulated, was frozen. It took everything in my being to stay focused and to put one foot in front of the other. Inside, I was questioning why was I on the side of a mountain, and I had to dig really deep to stay positive. I was ready to throw in the towel countless times, but to what end? There was really no easy way out. The last hour was the most difficult and required a lot of rock climbing. It was just as the sun was peaking above the horizon that we reached the top. The sky transitioned from a thick carpet of stars to an orange tapestry of color. I tell you this story because it's about climbing to great heights. And isn't Rotary a story we should be shouting from the top of a mountain? I also see this climb as a metaphor for life and about how we frame the things that are important to us. What are the stories in your own club, in your own district, that help to bring Rotary to life? As a global network of professional business and community volunteers, Rotary is a brand that unites the world. We simply have to climb the mountain and shout a little louder. Each one of you are ambassadors of our great message, and it begins daily by simply wearing your Rotary pin. We see now more than ever that clubs that have great public relations are clubs that are growing. Public relations actually is one of our best progressive tools for membership, both for recruitment and for retention. When we tell our story, like-minded people want to join with us. It makes it so much easier to ask someone to be part of Rotary when they're already aware of who we are and what we're doing. Likewise, there's such a sense of pride that's created within our ranks when we see our stories being told. Members feel good about what they're doing, and in turn, they're buoyed and want to continue doing more. It's a great way to keep our members engaged. If you have gleaned anything in the past few minutes, I hope it's that good public relations is about telling our stories. You may, however, still be asking, how do I do this when I'm not an expert? Well, the first thing you must realize is it's not your job alone. Good public relations is every member's obligation. We're all ambassadors of Rotary. So, how do we showcase what's valuable to us? Not long ago, I was in Chicago visiting my brother. We went shopping one afternoon, and the only thing I wanted to purchase was a gratitude journal. This was a trend a few years ago where you would write down 3 things a day that you were grateful for. The premise being that it would help to manifest the power of positive thinking. I thought this was a good thing. We were in a lovely little boutique when I found my book. Very quietly, I said to my husband, Nick, this is my gratitude journal. I looked around a little bit more and then I went up to the counter to pay. I watched as the clerk went down to one end of the counter and took out this beautiful tissue paper and carefully wrapped the book. He then went to the other end of the counter where he found a blue box with gold lines all over the top. He came back to the middle and finished it off with an elaborate bow and then came forward and gave it to me. He said, I couldn't help but overhear what you said, that this is going to be your gratitude journal. He said, I want to be the first entry in your book. I want you to write that the man that sold this book to me made it an even more beautiful experience. He is indeed the first entry. So how do we showcase what's important to us? What's the packaging, the special ribbons that we wrap around Rotary to make it even more beautiful? We do it through public relations. We do it by telling our story. Rotary, a brand that brings the world together. And so, I carry his message of gratitude here today to say thank you. Thank you for all that you have done, and thank you for all that you are going to do. You have already been touched deeply by our organization, or you wouldn't be sitting here today. When we tell our stories, we're inspiring our clubs, recharging our batteries, and preparing for the year ahead. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being such a vital part of Rotary International.